How's it going out there, YouTube? My name is Jesse, and I am the curator for the Golden Age, and this is another...
Lost Heroes of the Golden Age.
Yes, this is Lost Heroes of the Golden Age, and we've done 2 voice villains on heroes, so why don't we go ahead and cover a couple of voice villains instead?
Oh, finally, it's about time.
Well, I tried to do both sides of the coins.
Well, we're doing villains, just like me.
I don't see you as the villain. I see you more as the voice of dissension.
Don't you think I should do this intro?
No, I'm perfectly capable of being able to do this. We're going to be doing the voice that comes out of the Fawcett comics of Bullet Man. I've covered Bullet Man before. Did a pretty good in-depth view of Bullet Man, but I never did cover his first issue because I didn't have access at the time. This does come out of Bullet Man Comics #1. Now, Bullet Man didn't start with his own self-titled comic book. He would get it while appearing in Masters Comics. And I don't know what happened with who wrote this story. It's the 3rd story in the comic book. And they really screwed up with the comic book. The intro is completely wrong. The paneling is done in some horrible misdone ways. They've got things coming from smaller pictures to bigger pictures, back to smaller pictures in a way that you don't do in comic books because it makes it very difficult to read, and it completely ruins the flow of the comic book. And you'll see it when I show it to you. They really screwed up with this one. Now, I kind of liked the idea of the villain that they introduced. The concept of the voice was, in my opinion, a very intriguing idea that it was disposable. He appeared and ended all in the same comic book, which I actually thought was kind of a shame, because this is an idea that they could have exploited through many of the comic books. See, the Bullet Man comics only garnered 16 issues. It was just, they wanted to give him his own self-titled comic. But with him being introduced in issue 1, the voice could have persisted through all 16 issues until they revealed him at the end. Now, maybe that would be something that they would do today. Maybe they didn't have that much forward thinking back then. 16 arc villain, but I really think that they could have stretched this a lot longer than it could have, and it would have been intriguing. But he's a one and done, and I wanted to show it just so we were doing a villain. I also wanted you to see this comic book and how completely mismatched it was. Now, although I've reviewed a little bit of Bullet Man, I haven't gone hard into it and to see if this was a norm, but this was definitely not how a majority of Golden Age comic books were done. And somebody really should have done some quality control before releasing this, because it's very difficult to read. I had to go through some of these pages over again because I was getting confused by, like, the paneling doesn't work this way. Why am I having trouble reading this thing? So I'm going to guide you through it a little bit, so you might have a little bit of an easier time with this and not get as confused and annoyed as I did. So let's go ahead and jump into this one and done story with Bullet Man and Bullet Girl while we review the voice, the villain. Bullet Man. Into the very heart of gangland zooms mighty Bullet Man in search of Susan Kent, better known to some as Bullet Girl. What in the world are you talking about? Okay, this is the first example of what I was talking about. This intro is absolutely wrong. Has nothing to do with this. In fact, through some of the story, it's her looking for him. He doesn't zoom into the heart of gangland, and he doesn't look for her. I don't know who wrote this intro, but they obviously didn't read the story at all. Okay, we start with the first two panels, which is really weird that the panels are part of the splash page, because look at his foot into the first panel. I hate it when comics override panels like that, though. Wait, a Bull hears about this. Just wait. Got some news for you, Bull. Come in. You're already in, Ratty. Close the door. Yeah, he's already in. So he's telling Bull that he knows who Bullet Man is, and for some reason he leaps over the table. Speak up! Who is he? Why did you need to leap over the table and grab him? Okay. I don't know how he finds out, but he tells him that his name is Jim Barr and he saw him in a laboratory. I mean, this doesn't seem like the kind of guy you'd see in a lab. Okay, so the Bull doesn't want anybody else to know the secret, so he brings in a couple of guys and he takes care of him. So, Jim Barr is Bullet Man. Think I'll give him a call. And while they're at a laboratory headquarters, because it says while at headquarters, get a load of this. The warden says Bull Maloro escaped from the big house. Know what that means, Jim? No, not really. Who is Bull? Now, this guy, who will later be identified as the sergeant, says that he's the king of the murder syndicate. And I love this part. Jim Barr goes, something must be done. So long. I'm going home. So long, Jim. Wonder what he's up to now. And then he's talking about that if Maloro is on the loose, then the city is not safe and something needs to be done. So he's in his home dressing up as Bullet Man, and as soon as he's getting ready to put his helmet on, someone comes up and says, "Drop the gravity helmet, Mr. Jim Bullet Man Barr." Okay. It's the 40s. All right. He exclaims with Bull Morello in the person, grab him before he gets that fancy helmet, boys. So he puts up a little bit of a fight, and then he gets bashed from behind. Now this is where the paneling is going to get really messed up, and not for the first time. The top two panels right here lead into the big panel, and then you have to read the two lower panels below the two first panels after you read the big panel. That's not how comic books are supposed to be done. I mean, even though I hate arrows, this could have benefited from arrows, because this is messed up, and not for the first time. The two top panels and then the two smaller panels below it are supposed to lead into the larger panel, but the two top ones lead into the large ones, and then the two smaller ones below it have to be read after you read the big one. I had to double take a number of these pages and reread it, so I actually got the story in the right order. This is a frustrating read when it is completely inconsistently paneled. Someone who wrote this story, I mean, yeah, you want to do the big panel because it's big, it shows you more. You screwed it up. You shouldn't have done it like this, because it makes it very difficult to read. But I'm here to lead you through it, and maybe with my guidance it'll make it easier, because I had a hard time reading this at first glance. Okay, for the first time in his crime-fighting career, Jim Barr is beaten into submission before the guys of Mighty Bullet Man can come to his aid. That's a weird way of saying it, because he is Bullet Man. So why would it be Jim was beaten before Bullet Man can come to his aid? I mean, considering that he is Bullet Man, that's a weird way of saying it. Okay. And then it says, meanwhile, Susan hurries from the police station to follow Jim. If Jim, Bullet Man, has been snooping around without me, I'll... And then she gets to the laboratory and find it ransacked. It's really astounding. She's following Jim, yet he goes home and beaten into submission before she gets there. Why were you taking your time? Okay. She says the laboratory is ruined. His helmet is still here. The murder syndicate doesn't remember that Bullet Man has a pal called Bullet Girl. Oh no, they know who you are. Anyways, she puts on a cloak, I guess, and tries to go to the newspaper, which you're later on in that day, the newspaper wouldn't have anything about Jim Barr. Okay, Baker shot to death. Only one thing to do, find Jim Barr and I'll find the murder syndicate. Somewhere in the city, they've got him prisoner. How do you know that? There is no evidence at his laboratory that this murder syndicate captured him. You don't even know that Bull knows Jim's secret identity. So there is no way you can make that connection. Anyways, she removes her cloak and goes into the city and looks for him. But even while Bullet Girl searches relentlessly for Jim Barr, Bull Maloro and his men gathered around their captive. So, I guess they got Jim strung up and they want to take him to go meet the boss. And this is where we get introduced to the Voice. They enter the chamber where the Voice comes to them from behind a closed door. Good evening, Bullet Man. Jim Barr. I guess Bull wanted more people to know who he is now. Okay, he wants to know who the boss is. You may call me the Voice, for that is all you ever need know of me. Just now, I am thinking of a sure way to get rid of the world of you. And, okay, right here, he has no shirt on. But right here, he's got his shirt on again. Did they decide to put his shirt back on to meet the Voice? He's got to meet the Voice. He needs to be properly dressed. Then he tells him that you're really the leader and not Bull Maloro. Foolish lad, of course I'm the leader. And not a bad job of doing her. I've got several more men to dispose of, including Sergeant Kent, which was the sergeant that we saw earlier. And then suddenly, Bullet Girl finds him. I don't know how she was able to locate him, but she does find him, busts in, and then they both start to beat up the bad guys. And he doesn't even have his helmet on, but he's assisted with her, tosses Bull Maloro, who tries to come at him with a knife. And just as he tries to burst through the door to find out who the leader is, we find out that the leader has suddenly disappeared. She hands him the gravity helmet, and now they're ready to go as Bullet Man and Bullet Girl. Okay, we're back at police headquarters, and we have an individual named Higgins talking to Sergeant Kent. And he's expressing displeasure with Sergeant Kent and that he is going to get fired. And Sergeant Kent says, "Shut your mouth, Higgins. You're not DA yet." But Higgins says, "Look, I'm merely here to talk to you about a murder and there's no patrolman around." So Sergeant Kent was like, "Well, why didn't you say so? Sounds like the murder syndicate again." My, such enthusiasm. "Hello, Sergeant. You want to come for a ride? Well, I'll be. When I'm elected, I'll quiet you. Vote Gerber. Get in." So as the gunmen tried to speed off with apparently Higgins and the patrol officer, Bullet Man is there and he's holding up the car. I don't remember him having super strength when I've reviewed him before, but maybe he does with the gravity helmet. Okay, so as he holds them, Bullet Girl comes over and starts ripping people out of the car, and then Bullet Man joins him, and they start beating up the gunmen. "Honest, Bullet Man, I didn't do nothing." "No, but you will in a minute. Think that over a while." Okay, naughty boy. I see. He's trying to shoot her. Naughty boy, you mustn't play with loud toys. Well, well, well. So Bullet Man and Bullet Girl are real people. Of course they are. You're running for DA. You should know that. Okay, so they asked the sergeant if he's all right. Sergeant says that he's fine, but one of them are getting away. Now, this is another example of reading the two top panels to the larger panel and then going to the two smaller panels. This isn't the way you're supposed to read it. So it's these two top panels. He says they're getting away and they take flight to the larger panel, saying if they followed him to the building, back to the smaller panels, where they say, let's see, that's the place where you're held prisoner, and they're gonna break through, and then they show them at the door, but this is obviously, it looks like they're breaking through a wall, but then they're at a door again, empty. Where'd he go? Look, Jim, there's the voice. Haha, so we meet again. Don't you move, Bullet Man. And as they're standing there, it looks like the wall just moves out of the way. This is a very oddly constructed building. So the wall moves out of the way, and then there's a whole bunch of gunmen there ready to take them down. All right, let's start the fireworks. Not yet, my lad. First, you'll have to meet the other guest. Boy, this'll slay him. And this Sergeant Kent. Now, I have a huge problem with this right here. They left Sergeant Kent by the car, took flight into the air, followed the man to the building, they busted in and got ready to fight. How in the world did they not only get Sergeant Kent, tie him up, and have him ready to present him faster than Bullet Man and Bullet Girl flew to the building? They didn't say hours later or much later. They immediately flew up in the air and followed him. How in the world did they tie up the sergeant and get him there faster than the two flying people? Doesn't make any sense to me. Anyways, they start flying into action anywhere. So Bullet Man starts beating up the bad guys while Susan tries to untie Sergeant Kent. Meanwhile, Susan unties her father's hands. Little did he realize that this brave girl in the guise of Bullet Girl is his own daughter. All right, Sergeant, let's see you do something. Just wait till I get my hands free on these monkeys. You see, this is another interesting issue. He's looking at her dead on in the face and doesn't recognize his own daughter. Does he work so much that he never sees her enough to be able to recognize her? Okay, we see the voice yelling at them. Idiots! Blundering sheep! Stop them! Hey, here's another example of the top panel to the larger than the two smaller ones. He's beating up the bad guys. Bullet Man, help! Huh? Kent is in trouble. All right, Copper. Here's where I give it to you. And then Bullet Man zooms into the rescue to stop Bull. Like I said, this was very difficult to read the first time through. I was trying to figure out why the whole thing wasn't written properly, and it's not paneled properly. Now it seems like they got the paneling correct for this page. He beats up Bull, finish off the last guy, and then says, "Watch me dig a rat out of the hole." Splinters in through the door, apparently, because it shows, I guess. He's either going through the wall or the door to get into the room while the voice got away. I'm not so sure yet. And then he sees a man leaving the room in a very distinctive purple suit. You remember? Do you remember? Okay. So he flies after the leader, the voice knocks him out. You got him. Who is he? Someone I think you know, Sergeant. Take a look at the man who was running for office in this town. Running for office. This is very specific to what's going to be said in the next couple of pages, or next couple of panels. So he says that The only way that he could get the proper vote was to eliminate everybody in his path, and that was what he was using the murder syndicate for. But they stop him, and then Bullet Man and Bullet Girl decide to fly away. He says, "Wait, you'll get a reward." It's like, he goes, "Come on, Bullet Man, we're finished here. Take care of D.A. Higgins, Sergeant." He calls him D.A. Higgins. First, right here, just 2 panels earlier, he says he's running for office. Earlier, when him and Sergeant Kent were talking at police headquarters, he says, "You're not DA yet." So you wouldn't say, "Take care of DA Higgins," because he's not the DA yet. Then they fly off, and here's the last example of improper paneling. These 2 large pages, I read this wrong too. This confused me. I was like, why did they say appearing in Master Comics and then have this large panel? No, it's these 2 smaller ones. Where to now, Jim? Let's drop into headquarters as Jim Barr and Susan Kent. And then you see them walking into headquarters. And then we'll read the last 2 panels, which are improperly placed in this story. Well, who's throwing the party? Come in, children. They're not children. They're fully grown adults. Come in, children. I have a lot to tell you about Bullet Man and Bullet Girl. Daily News: Murder Syndicate smashed by Bullet Man and Bullet Girl. Bullet Man appears in Masters Comics. I really hope someone got fired for this. The proper impaneling made this very hard to read. I hope I made it a little bit easier for you. Well, I hope you enjoyed this one. It's always an interesting treat when you jump into the world of Fawcett Comics. I've still got some more voices. The month isn't over yet for the voice month that we're doing. And I do have another villain coming up next week before we get to the voice, the Invisible Detective is what we're going to be rounding out the month with. That's a really interesting one, more or less. So let's go ahead. I hope you enjoyed this one, villain, before we get into what was probably the best of the voice heroes. So until next time, I'll be seeing you.